Good afternoon. I'm Sean P.
I'm Big Root.
And we're the brothers.
I'm tired of the same rap songs. Every new hit's just to fucking sing along. Rappers so boring, now correct me if I'm wrong. It's like they took the art out the fucking art form. I'm tired of the same rap songs. Every new hit's just to fucking sing along. Rappers so boring, now correct me if I'm wrong. It's like they took the art out the fucking art form.
Coming to you live from the Bronx.
And this episode is entitled When is Too Young?
When is Too Young?
So, Big Roop, it's been a little while since we broadcast last, and last episode was a very deep and hard and gut-wrenching one.
Yes, it was.
You know, but I think any of our listeners who paid attention realized that we are committed to this podcast and being consistent and honest and open. And I think the last episode really displayed that.
I think so, 100%.
So basically, last episode, Best Life Now, was just talk about the seriousness of life and how to make the most of it. And then we encountered a phone call during the episode, which we realized our mother passed. And we made a commitment to continue the episode that day. And once we handled everything that needed to be handled, we did come back and we finished the episode.
Yes, we did.
And hopefully our listeners appreciated that, and hopefully there was something to take away from that, which is to make the most of every opportunity and every moment and to live your best life now.
Yes, definitely. I mean, tomorrow's promised to no one.
Right. So that being said, today's episode, When is Too Young? What's the genesis of that title, and what led you to that title, that topic?
Well, in the news recently, there's been some controversy surrounding Dwayne Wade's son and his sexuality. And basically, should he be wearing female attire, male attire? You know, when is too young for the person to make a decision as to which direction they want to go?
Right. So I've heard some of that topic, and I've paid attention to it. And as someone who used to work professionally with children and just being aware of the overall development, there are times when I feel that children are unnecessarily put into situations that have nothing to do with the development at that point. So our society has basically made some changes as far as gender identification. In some sense, there is no such thing as gender, and things that go against logic and basic understanding. And I think that's led us to where we are right now as far as children basically defining or not defining themselves and therefore dressing accordingly or unaccordingly. So I think that's initially the issue. But what specifically was going on with Dwayne Wade's son? He has two sons, I believe?
He has two sons. I believe the older one is more known as a basketball, highly touted talent, and plays with LeBron's son. And then he has a younger son that seems to, identify with the opposite sex.
Okay, was that the only classifications of them? Because I'd like to think that they're more than just a basketball player and someone identifying with the opposite sex. So what else is known about them? Because to me, that goes to the heart of just labeling and identifying and quantifying people. In other words, Zion's oldest son, Zion, I just said his name. Dwayne Wade's oldest son, his name is Zion, who is a basketball player. And he is known for playing with LeBron James' son. And Dwayne Wade's younger son, I believe his given name is Zaire. And his alternative moniker is Zaya. And I think that goes to the notion that they are, the notion of who they are as people, and then I believe the controversy goes back a few years, and I think it also has to do with Dwayne Wade's other half.
Yeah, Gabrielle Union.
Right. Who recently has been expressing more of herself in different ways and not always expressions that go with the norm, expectations. So, again, when is too young? So, from your point of view, when is too young?
Well, I think a child, uh, elementary school through middle school, they're just a child. They shouldn't be pigeonholed into a certain type of lifestyle or sexual orientation. Let a kid be a kid. I think if a parent or someone of authority starts to pigeonhole them and you're going to dress this way and you have to conduct yourself this way, that's hurtful to the child's development.
Okay, but that being said, if you have a boy who wants to dress as a girl and parents have no responsibility for that or no direction towards that, that's their child, or that's their choice rather. Are you saying the parents shouldn't have any say and just let the kid be a kid and do what they're comfortable doing?
No, all I say is you need to talk to your child, find out why they think they want to dress as a girl. Is it something innate? Is something that they're being done in peer pressure with other children? You want to get to the bottom of why do they feel that way? It's one thing if they've never shown any tendencies or signs of wanting to dress or identify as the opposite sex, and now they have a certain friend that all of a sudden they're doing it, or is it something that from the time they were young they've always been different? I mean, the parents should know their child, but the parents should also be able to communicate with them and let them know there's no pressure to identify at an early age. Live life and see if that's really how you want to be identified.
Okay, but taking that point further, let's say there is no external influence, and let's say this is something that they've kind of tended to always do. Instead of going outside and playing basketball, they stay inside, and I know I might get some backlash over this for generalizing, but say they want to do ballet and they want to wear a tutu and they want to be the one picked up instead of the one who's doing the lifting, and that's just how they express themselves. Are they still too young to feel that way? Or what's the best way, I guess, to monitor those actions?
As a parent, I guess you don't want to pressure them or put pressure on them to conform to your identity of what they should be. And again, that goes back to knowing your child. Now, a lot of us I know have Christian backgrounds, and we believe boys are boys growing up to become men, and girls grow up to become women, and seeing them gravitating towards tendencies of the other sex might be hard to digest. I mean, I haven't gone through it, so I don't know from a personal standpoint if that's something I would be happy with. A lot of times you love your child and just want them to be happy, but you're right. When it's too young to try to put your influence on it.
And I don't understand it. I want something good to listen to. I demand it. All the real artists on another planet, and me, I'm the last MC still standing.
Well, I think my overall take on that is, like you said, when a child be a child, and when a grown up, you put away childish things. So I think that any level of expression from a child is largely a child. So I think a lot of behaviors shouldn't be sexualized. In other words, if you want to be in a tutu, the ballet, and you want to be lifted instead of doing the lifting, that should be taken as a form of art, a form of dance, and not an expression of your sexual identification or anything else, because literally you're dancing, right? And literally you're playing sports, and literally you're having fun as a child, you're developing. And as you grow older developmentally and other things come into play, I guess hormones is usually considered part of the growing process. And I think as hormones come into play and as people start to express themselves specifically in sexual ways, right? Because remember, we could dress one way and it has nothing to do with sex or anything that we're thinking about. It's everything to do with, I saw a movie and I want to be that character instead of that character. Okay. All right. You want to be Princess Leia instead of Luke Skywalker? Okay. It's an act, right? It's theater. And I think sometimes parents jump too far saying you can't be Princess Leia. You have to be Luke Skywalker. No, they're acting, right? So in other words, let's keep things in their own domain.
Keep them separate.
Keep them separate. And as the maturing process occurs, as, like you said, they go from being a child to a young adult and start expressing different ideas and thoughts, that's when you, as a parent, kick in and say, okay, where are we? Where are we going? And what exactly is going on? You know,
No, that's true. Because I think a lot of parents, like you said, they label. So because you want to be Princess Leia, then you have to be identifying as a gay person, which, like you said, has nothing to do with sexual orientation. Maybe you just like that role and you want to play it. Because I've met people in my life that you think that they're one way, but they're totally different. Like they like the opposite sex and that's what they want to be with, but they have a lot of tendencies that you would look at and like, oh, they like to do this, like they're artsy and they're into singing and dancing, maybe not seen as totally manly, but they're all men.
right. And I think it's clear that our listeners know that we're not talking about sexuality. We're not talking about heterosexuality or homosexuality. We're talking about age appropriateness because those are different conversations. And I mean, our society has shifted a lot over the last 10, 15 years as far as its inclusion and its acceptance of alternative lifestyles, which some people may find that offensive, but it is considered alternative. But that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about why can't children be children? When is it okay to expose the children to things that are not necessarily child-oriented? And why rush? Like, why not let children be children as long as they can and ease into adulthood? Because once you're an adult, you can't go back. You can't undo the things you know and experience. So why not maintain innocence and purity as long as possible and let people figure out which direction their life is going to go?
No, exactly. Not trying to force your agenda onto somebody in a certain situation. Because I believe not with Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade, but there's another post I had read where the mother basically had the boy child dressing as a girl against his will. She just wanted him to be dressed as a girl. And why would you impose that on somebody that's not asking for that? It wasn't like he was asking to walk around and, identify as a female.
Really? I'm not totally aware of the situation. How recent is that situation? What are the details of that?
I'd have to look it up. I believe it was in Florida, and I believe it was an African American mother that had her son walking around and dressed as a female. And from what I read in the article, it wasn't the child's choice. Like, she made him walk around this way.
Wow, that's really interesting, and that's something I would like to know a little bit more about because I think that crosses the line a little bit from age appropriateness to sexuality because now, like you said, you are kind of putting your desires and your expressions on someone else, and it's not really fair to them, in the sense that you're making me dress a way that I don't want to. Now, I guess to shift the conversation a little bit more is we can talk about gender identification because I think that is age appropriate. From my own experience, I remember that one of the earlier lessons you get in life is that boys are boys and girls are girls, right? You just know that there's a difference between boys and girls. It could even extend all the way up to mommy is mommy and daddy is daddy. And somewhere over the last couple of decades, up to most recent years, there's this notion that boys and girls are either exactly the same, or there's no difference, or there's no such thing. And I know I find that very surprising that there's no such thing as gender for some people's perspective.
Yeah, what do they call that? Fluid?
Or gender fluidity. And I find that very disturbing because, one, my own experience and outcomes have shown me that's not true. But two, now we have children that one of the most fundamental lessons is boy, girl. And now we're saying that that lesson is not real. There's no such thing as boy, girl. And you're whatever you feel like. And your biological reality doesn't determine who and what you are. And I think that to me ties into this topic because I do believe gender identification is something that should be age appropriate. Because for the most part, I think throughout human history, people's genders have determined their general identity, right? I'm a boy or I'm a girl because I have this genitalia. Not what I do with it, not how I feel comfortable covering it up, just literally that's my foundation. The same way I have 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 eyes, right? These are my biological realities. They're not open to interpretation. And suddenly there's this thing that maybe you don't really have 10 fingers, even though you can count them. Or, the fact you have 2 eyes doesn't mean you have to use them both. And you're like, yeah, but I do have 2 eyes for a reason. So I think that goes into gender identity and age appropriateness because at what point do our bodies not define who we are?
It's a good point. The only time I think it doesn't define is when you are born basically with both organs.
Okay.
And then you have to pick and choose. And again, as a child, do you even know what the right choice is? How do you really feel or identify?
One thing to that point, those situations are usually the rarity, right? You do have a small percentage of people that are born with both genitalia. And I think there still is usually a dominant physical characteristic that defines you. So you can be a girl with both genitalia, or you can be a male with both genitalia. But you're right. In that situation, I'm a boy and I'm a girl, right? And that's why I said, okay, that's more of I don't want to say an oddity, but a small segment of population. But most people are born with one or the other. And that's kind of been a foundation of, I guess, human society around the world, right? We're not talking about the roles that males and females have. That's different. In other words, because you have this genitalia, you're supposed to do this thing. We're talking about just the identification of the genitalia, saying, okay, well, this makes you a boy. And some people are saying that's not true. And that's where I kind of lean into struggling because, okay, well, maybe I don't really have legs, right? Maybe none of my physical characteristics have any real value in my life. Maybe I have legs, but I don't believe I should ever walk. So I'm just going to lay down forever. We can laugh, but that's literally what we're saying, that your physical characteristics are not really defining in your life, So going back to what you said about the mother who basically tried to, I guess, make her boy into a girl, it kind of crosses that domain where, okay, biologically you're one way. From an age point of view, you haven't defined yourself yet, so you haven't expressed one or the other. But I'm making that choice for you, and I'm going to go against your biological reality.
Yeah, which is really, extreme.
Very, very. And I'll say, from my point of view, it's disturbing. Because it's one thing to say we shouldn't rush kids to figure out who they are and who they want to be. It's another thing to say that we should let kids figure out who they are and who they want to be. And it's another thing to say that we're going to tell kids who they are and what we want them
Want
to
them to
be.
be, force them into a certain role.
Right. And that's just a whole shift. We're saying instead of letting them figure it out, I'm going to tell you, and it actually goes against what you may know to be normal or acceptable or biological, right? Because imagine boys growing into this society who know that they're boys. When they go to school, they go to the boys' bathroom. They play in the boys' gym, but now they're being dressed as a girl. So imagine the confusion they have to feel, which is equal or maybe even more extreme than someone who is biologically one way but feels another way. Because now they're biologically one way, they feel that way, but they're being told that's wrong. So I mean, going back to our title here, when is too young? What age is appropriate to really, I guess, open up these topics and to delve into this area?
I mean, I guess I go basically physiological when 13, 14, when you get puberty and you physically are changing, to me is the time when you would be more of the mindset to discern, which way you would like to be identified as.
Okay. So you think puberty should kind of be the stage where these topics become relevant?
Yeah, in my mind, if you're 8, 9, 10, you're a kid, let a kid be a kid. I think once you reach puberty, is when you would start really having feelings of the desire to opposite sex and, how you want to identify, as opposed to when you're younger, you just want to play around and have fun as a kid. You should be trying to enjoy all those different experiences that kids can do. Everything's a new experience to you as opposed to being forced one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. I think puberty is a good marker. I think puberty, like you said, used as a starting point, not an end point, right? And just said, okay, it can explore these things as you continue to grow and develop is a good area for it. And yeah, I agree. I think well said. I think my biggest problem with this whole area is that number one, why are we having conversations with children that are much more adult oriented? And number two, what is the fair age? Which I think you just said, as your body starts to change, as boys and girls developmentally become more identifiable with either gender in the sense of biological realities do kick in, which again goes back to if you have legs, you have legs. There are people born without legs, so you don't expect someone without legs to walk, right? You just don't. You do expect someone with legs to walk. That's not a stretch. That's just a biological reality. You expect them mentally that they'll at some point begin to use their body parts in natural ways, right? That's why even when you watch kids take their first steps, you're not shocked, you're proud, right? Because you expect it. And if they don't, then you get concerned. Why is so-and-so not walking at this age, or what's going on? But when they take those first steps, usually you're proud because you know that, okay, they're developing, they're growing, they're maturing. So I think, that's my biggest concern. And the fact that we're starting to have conversations that deny biological realities, right? Your gender doesn't define who you are as far as your biological reality, right? You're a boy, but what does it mean to be a boy? I mean, we take that to further extremes. Boys, men, males are generally the seed planters. That's biological realities. We plant seeds. And girls, women, females are nurturers. Their bodies are biologically designed to receive a seed and to developmentally nurture that seed and grow it to, a new organism. That's just biological reality. It has nothing to do with religious perspective or denominations or anything. That's just the way life works. And somehow we're getting away from that. Like, you know what, real life isn't real anymore. You know, you have two eyes, but that doesn't mean they're for seeing. Yes, they are. That's what they exist for. That's their purpose.
Yeah, some of the people nowadays would say your two eyes are to hear.
Right, exactly. And you said that doesn't make sense. Oh, so if I feel like seeing causes me to hear better, and no, we're talking about biological reality, right? Now a philosophical interpretation. So I mean, that's my concern. Not to get off topic, but that's my concern that age appropriateness, when it's too young, is a very important topic, and gender identification is simply a matter of biological reality. And I think it's dangerous when we say it's not. When you could tell a little boy or girl that they're not a little boy or girl. And the next question is, well, what am I? And I'm curious what someone would say. Like, what do you tell a little boy? You're not a boy. You're not a girl. What am I?
Well, the people who are making these arguments would say you're fluid, whatever that means.
But that's my point.
Because again, you are either a boy or a girl when you're born.
Right, and I'm saying them saying that you're fluid, right, should have to be quantified, explained. Not to the child, but to society, right? If you tell society that somehow thousands of years of human organization is wrong, because they're going to say, oh, well, they're a human being. Well, that's a given. We understand that we're all from different species and human beings make other human beings. I don't think anybody aware doesn't agree with that. But you're saying that the fact you're a human being and your biological gender has no bearing on the rest of your life. So in other words, the fact you're a male isn't designed for you to at some point be a seed planter. And the reality is, no, it is. You don't have to plant a seed, but you're designed to plant a seed. Boys are never going to carry babies to term because they're not designed to do that. And that's a biological reality. And that's something that we could also argue, when is it age appropriate to have that conversation? I don't have a problem with that per se. But we're saying the reality is the reality. Like, we teach little boys to stand up and pee because at some point they're going to have to, or they should. We teach little girls that they need to sit down because at some point they're going to have to, right? That's a biological reality. That's not philosophical. That's just saying, no, your body's designed a certain way, and you need to maximize its performance and its nature so that you can have the best life possible. And if we start saying that's not true, then what is true? So that's kind of the concerns I have. So, big group, as we always do on our podcast, we always get to a call to action. And what would your call to action be as far as when it's too young?
I just think that parents or guardians should let children be children. Don't try to enforce your beliefs or your wishes on your children. Let them come to a conclusion as they reach puberty and start to develop hormonally. Stop trying to interject what you want to be into reality.
Okay. I think that's really good. I think my call to action would be for us as a society to actually have an honest conversation about what is and isn't real and how it affects those of us who live here. Because like you said, what is gender fluidity, right? I understand anyone having the right to say, I am who I am and I want to be seen the way I want to be seen. That's true. But I also think that we should be able to identify objective reality, right? If you have 2 feet, 2 legs, you have 2 legs. If you have one, you have one. And I think the fact that someone says, well, I have 2 legs, but I'm only using one today, doesn't mean we have to say you only have 1 leg. No, you have 2 legs and you just aren't using them both. Or you have legs, but you decided not to get up, right? Because there are people sitting down that, because of some biological situation, they can't get up. And we should acknowledge that because they may need our help because they're not able to do certain things. And there's people that have 2 legs that I don't feel like getting up. That's your choice, but I don't have to extend you that same courtesy as someone else who can't get up. And as a society, I think we have to be careful and acknowledge that. You're free to have your feelings, but we're free to acknowledge what's clearly observable, right? And again, there may be room on both sides to have that conversation. That's why I think we should have it. Like you said, parents should be able to determine the natural upbringing of their children, and society shouldn't have to lie about what we know is true, right? So thus far in human existence, if you have male genitalia, you're a male. And you have female genitalia, you're a female. And those things play into life. Like, I mean, that's how life continues, right? So if we don't teach boys and girls that if they procreate or don't procreate, we won't continue, we won't. I mean, that's just the reality of life. That's how life works. So I think society, we need to be very honest about it and say, you know what, boys, girls, there's no such thing. Whatever you do, whatever you don't do, because now you can have boys and girls having sex, not realizing they're going to create life because they don't believe that that's how life is created, right? So if I use my genitalia this way, it doesn't really matter. There's no bearing. No, there is bearing. If you do this thing to its full extent, you can create another life. Really? Yes. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So we as a society have to continue to tell them that because it's true. It's not a stretch. If a male of a certain age and a female of a certain age
come together, have intercourse, they can create another life. So saying it's not true doesn't mean it's not true. It's still going to be a reality.
Exactly. So that's my call to action. I agree with yours that parents have a huge responsibility in being available to their children. And I think that society has a huge responsibility in being honest with its members.
I agree.
So, again, hopefully our listeners will give us some feedback. Not sure how many guys have been doing this, but please check out the Facebook page, The Brothers. Big Rube hosts it. He maintains it. He checks out all of the comments, and we try to include them when we can in the podcast. And we'll definitely bring you guys another episode soon. So I'm Sean P.
I'm Big Root.
And we're The Brothers.
Peace out.
I'm tired of the same rap songs. Every new hit's just to fucking sing along. Rap is so boring, now correct me if I'm wrong. It's like they took the art out the fucking art form. What's going on, man? I don't understand it. I want something good to listen to, I demand it. All the real artists on another planet, and me, I'm the last MC still standing.